Are you listening? Damn.
And a big welcome back to the Endurance Hour Podcast, episode 362, alongside Kona Coach Wendy Mader. I'm Dave Erickson. So glad to have you with us this week. What a gorgeous weather week for us here in the inland Northwest. How's it for you in Georgia?
It's cooler. It's a lot of rain this week, which is actually really pleasant. We had like about a 2-week spell where it was 95 to 105 degrees, very high humidity, pretty unbearable even for someone like me who tends to like the heat. Mm-hmm. It was pretty awful. Yet it did, allow me some heat training, which I tried to thrive on. What most people think of hot as negative, I tried to thrive on it and take that extra precaution, do some heat training. And then, we've had some rain, which has cooled things off. But I saw one of my friends in Colorado, she posted the weather in Colorado, a high of 96 and a low of 55. And she said one of the reasons I like living in Colorado is because it could get really hot, yet the mornings are cool and the evenings are cool. And I do remember that. That was actually really nice. Here in Georgia, when it gets to 96 plus degrees and high humidity, it's never cool. It'll maybe cool off to a low of 75, but it feels really still, warm because of that higher humidity. So it's definitely like any place, got its ups and downs with weather.
Yeah, I think we've turned a corner here. We had some rain the previous couple of weeks, quite a bit, and then it just opened up the week of, and I saw one cloud at 4:30 in the morning on the way to the race, and other than that, blue skies. In fact, the high temperature expected on the day for my race at 70.3 Coeur d'Alene was 88, which made me a little nervous, but that was going to be the high of the day. And I don't think I actually got into that, but it was definitely in the low 80s on the run for sure.
So I rode 100-mile. It was an event, a charity event on Saturday, and the high was only 88 degrees. That was actually very pleasant. I thought the weather that we got to ride in was actually very pleasant. It was mostly cloudy, very partly sunny, high of 88, which again, in my neck of the woods was cooler and more pleasant for us to not be 98 and above.
Yeah. Well, it was almost a perfect day, I think, for the most part. I can't think of anything wrong or challenging with the weather at all for that half Ironman. We got a lot of questions today with the podcast, questions that were emailed or left on social media for the Endurance Hour. We're going to get to some of those. But this is a routine, would you say, Wendy, that you go through with your athletes post-race so they can assess how it went for them?
Yeah, so I wanted to do a little bit of post-race review with you. You had just done Coeur d'Alene 70.3. You had already talked about the weather. Yeah. But I do have a list of, I think it's about 8 questions that I'm just curious because we haven't talked about your race. I know you had a goal of trying to execute your race plan. So kind of want to know if that actually happened. And, let's just start off with the question I have for you. Number 1 is, did you execute your plan?
I believe I did. There are things that didn't go like I hoped, but overall, I approached it the right way. And I was very happy with the execution of my mindset and what I wanted to accomplish on the bike in order to have the run that I wanted to have, although there were a couple hiccups toward the end of the run. But I think overall, I stayed within myself, and I kept reminding myself, when you go through a race, you think, how would I talk about this later? And I was thinking, okay, on the bike, I'm going, how am I doing? And I thought measured was the good word I could use post-bike, is that I was very measured during the bike ride in order to have the run that I wanted to run. And it was very difficult, actually, to hold back on the course that I was familiar with. Ironically, I actually rode it faster than I rode it 3 years ago. And 3 years ago, I rode it too hard. So there are some positives. I know these are some of your other questions about, how'd your training do to lead you up to this? But I guess
let me just interrupt there. So you rode faster this year, but your effort was less. So our lower RPE and a higher and a faster speed. Did you measure power both times?
I don't remember the power last time, but I will say that I started off solid and strong on the bike Do you want to go in order, or do you just want to jump around?
Just jump around.
Okay. So I started, and my whole plan was, all right, let's stay, don't push, is what I kept telling myself. Don't push the bike. Stay steady the entire time, and be disciplined in that philosophy. And that was looking at my power. And I started off, for me, 215, 220 was my average power. And I knew that if I wanted to finish under 3 hours or close to what I was thinking about doing, I needed to stay about 19 miles per hour. I knew that was going to be my marker. It's like, if I stay there, that's a fine race. That's the execution. If I went faster, great, but the power was key, because I knew if I went too hard, I wouldn't have anything left. So I was going out there, 215, 220, feeling strong, feeling relaxed, as you always do in the first part of the bike. And I knew the course very, very well. And I said, well, this feels easy still, but don't push it, because I could have pushed it. The whole race, I could have pushed harder. And I knew that. It's like, all right, cool. Settle down. Stay settled. Don't push. People are going to pass you if they do, but don't push. And on the climbs, high cadence, not high power. And that was the thing, is just head down. I was head down, high cadence, up the hills, in the first part of the hills. And then I maintained the 215, 220 on the power. And I go, I need to slow this down, because I think 210 is probably where I want to be by the end of the day. I thought that's where I want to be. And then I approached the first huge climb, and that was a mile and a half, almost 2 mile climb, very steep. And I knew where it was on the course. And I prepared for that. I actually had a little sticker on my bike that showed, at mile 18, the next 1.7 miles is uphill. At mile 20, the next 2.5 miles was downhill. I had this all marked out. So I was very mentally executing the plan of, all right, how do I approach every hill?
That's awesome. So I know you've raced, quite a bit. You have like over 20 plus years experience racing. Was there anything in particular that you learned during this particular event about yourself, about your preparation or execution, or is it just something that you kind of confirmed that you already knew?
Well, I learned that I can be disciplined in the execution. That was hard to not go outside myself. And I felt happy that, as I went on the bike, I noticed the power. I dropped the power on purpose. And that was a weird, hard thing to do, an ego thing. Slow down, go slower on purpose. Let's lower those average watts. Even if in the time, luckily, the average miles per hour actually didn't drop too much, because I planned some of these descents, and I killed the descents, and then I was controlled on the uphills. But I realized, okay, I'm going to keep on dropping this. So I learned that I can follow a plan through its entirety, not just, all right, let's just kind of let's kill it in this section and then come back to the plan. No, I said the plan the whole time. So that's what I learned, that I can do that as hard as it was. And some of it forced me to go slower, and I went actually slower than I thought I should have. I was going to, because I started feeling and assessing, which is something someone told me recently, assess throughout the whole time. I started feeling a little bit of a hip flexor cramp in one of my legs, going, oh, no. This is not, I can't have this on a run where I'm running on tired legs. I can run a good half marathon on fresh legs, but if I have an issue like this, it's going to be worse. So I dropped down. I think my average is 193 on the day. That was the average watts. Although normalized power was like 215 or 213, something like that.
Yeah, sounds great.
But I forced myself to go slower, and I stood up more, and I got the cramp away.
Nice.
And there was one thing, and I don't know who's to answer this, but I started not sweating as much at the end. And I sweated at the beginning, but I was well hydrated to the point where I peed a few times on the bike. And that sounds gross, but to us triathletes, you can do that. You do that. But it's like, oh my gosh, I can't take any much more in, because I'm going to have to pee. And then I had to pee, but I don't want to over flood myself. And I think I took all my nutrition that I was going to need. So
that was actually one of my questions.
Yeah.
How was your nutrition, and did it work for you?
It did. The only challenge was the run where I cramped. So I don't know where that happened, why that happened. It could just be, and it would happen around mile 9 or mile 10 on the run. So it could just be that you do a half Ironman, and the body begins to break down toward the end. It could just be, maybe I need a little bit fitter. Well, I need to be fitter, but muscular fitter. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, cramping can be caused by, we all know electrolyte. You could have been a little bit depleted.
Hmm.
You know, you haven't been training a heck of a whole lot outside. It's only June. You will be getting more outside riding for your Ironman in November.
Hmm.
So it could just be the nature of um, maybe the lack of specificity of training on those type of hills could have fatigued your quads more than you anticipated. Could be, already said, maybe a fitness thing. Maybe you in particular need a little bit more salt or magnesium
Hmm.
as an electrolyte on the bike or in the beginning of the run. So there's you know, a lot of things that impact cramping. But it sounds like your running pace in the
Hmm.
beginning was right on where you wanted it to be. So again, it could go back to you wanted your running pace to be what it was, but again, it could be that was a little bit too much for where you are on a fitness level.
And it might be the combination of I only did 3 60-mile rides, I think, leading up to the race. I
Uh-huh.
did a few more of those and then did a few more runs off the bike that were longer.
Hmm.
And then I think that could have helped condition them. Plus, I could have probably hydrated or taken a little more nutrition in the early stages of the run because of the cramping happened around mile 9 or 10.
Yeah,
Maybe.
I'm always going to first say, look at the nutrition part of it. Look at the electrolyte component of, not having enough as the reason you cramped. But like I said, there's already other factors that could have caused that to come into play. And how did you handle, something like a cramp? Situations that can be out of our control. We don't always expect we're going to cramp. How did you handle that?
Well, I felt it coming on, and then I started just to slow down the stride. It's like I don't want to extend what's going to exacerbate this cramp, and that's
Hmm.
going to be this a certain kind of stretching or a certain kind of extension of the run. And so I actually just physically grabbed my leg, and I kept moving. I kept moving forward because I was trying to figure out if I stop and stretch, I could make the cramp go away. But I've stopped, and the clock is still running.
Hmm.
But if I keep shuffling, I'm moving forward, and this is one of those learning experiences where you have to go through it. I've walked out cramps before, or I've stretched out cramps before in motion, so I can do this. But I grabbed myself physically in the hamstring area and squeezed it, and like almost kept it from cramping and kept moving along, and then it went away. That was at
See,
mile 9. Strange.
yeah, I've never even thought of doing that. So that's really good
Yeah.
feedback, something I just learned to prevent.
Yeah.
I'm not someone who cramps, not that I've never cramped, but again, that's kind of good to know and, to share with other athletes that tend to cramp
It,
because you have tend to cramp. You've cramped before in other
Yeah,
events.
I have, and luckily the calf cramping wasn't there because I can't really squeeze my cramp while I'm running.
Uh-huh.
But I've had some cramps, and today this time around, I think I was hydrated enough. But a combination of things, the long, hitting that mile marker after a hard bike.
Hmm.
I don't ride at 19 miles per hour for 56 miles and then go at a really good pace for the next 9 miles and then
Hmm.
experience that. And then the second leg cramped around mile 10. And then I held both of them and just kept shuffling. It was kind of probably looking weird behind, if you're running behind me. He's like, this guy's holding his butt and his hamstrings and pushing himself along. But then they both went away, luckily. And then, oh, here's one thing, Wendy. Not once, and here's an execution or a thing I learned or I feel good about. Not once did I look at my watch during the entire run. And the reason why I thought is that it doesn't matter. I'm going to run my pace. I kept thinking, actually, I thought of you on this because you sometimes won't look at your watch or care about what your data says while you're in the race. I thought the same thing. It doesn't matter what I see. I can only go as hard as I can go. And
Yeah.
heart rate would be the only thing I would look at, but I was doing an RPE the whole time. This is
Nice, nice.
following the T2 Endurance Wendy Mader plan of what's my RPE. And I think I was probably at a high 6 on the run. and
Nice.
and that was measured as well. It was I went out and I didn't look at all. And the odd thing is I could hear my mile markers on my watch. I knew they were there and I didn't look on purpose. It was like I can do this. It's so hard when you're so tempted to look and I go, I'm not looking. And then I got to a point where I'm not looking at all. I wish I would have known my heart rate, but then again I said I know what I feel like and I feel good. My pace, anyone who runs, all of us who are listening, you know what your pace probably sounds like with your feet hitting the ground. that's my pace.
Uh-huh.
If I shuffle, I mean, if it's a little bit slower, you can recognize that pace. Probably it's like a swim stroke. You know what 22 strokes feels like versus 28. You kind of know that feel. And so on the run, I left the transition, hit my watch, and it went off fast. And according to my stats, I don't know why this is right. My stats show I ran a super fast first 1 mile, but I didn't try at all. I was just going out for a jog. And then I kept going. And I think that was one of those, I felt very good about where I was. And one thing I thought, and this, I don't know where this came from. I don't know if it was a mile 5 or 6, or it was right after my first loop, the 2-loop course. I thought, so goofy, I could do this all day. I could run like this all day, I thought. That's how good I felt. And when I saw some friends out there giving me high fives going, it's going to be a good day. It's a good day. I feel good. And I felt great. And then the cramps happened 3 miles later. But I said to myself, I could do this all day. I could do this. I could do a full right now. That's how good I felt.
That's such a good feeling.
But it's goofy to think that. It's like, who would ever say I could do this all day? But that's how comfortable I felt because I throttled down the bike and slowed down and got the legs prepped for the run.
Yeah. Now, speaking of doing this all day, I know from experience, I've had those feelings and I know I can't. Like I could feel like when I did Ironman Florida in 2021, in November 2021, I was clipping off the pace I wanted to clip off, which was around 8-minute miles. I felt strong and I felt in control. And I felt like, yeah, right now, the first 10 miles, I feel like I could do this all day, yet I know better. And I turned the halfway mark and I was right on pace. And then I get to mile 15 and I'm like, yep, I knew better. Here it comes. And then by mile 16, I started to break down. And then by mile 18, I was totally like, wow, I went from, cloud 9 to cloud 0. I was hurting so bad. And, savor the moments when you are executing well and you are feeling that well. And, yeah, maybe you could have held that all day if you didn't have the cramps. So lots of good things happen to you that you can carry into your next phase of training, which is for Ironman Arizona. So that sounds great.
I think I could have, if it wasn't for the cramps. I was feeling strong. I was without looking, see, I didn't look at the watch the whole time, but my goal was if I can stay at 8:45, 8:50, the goal was to break 2 hours. And I thought I could do that. But the cramps got me, and I was, 20 seconds over 2 hours. So that was it. That's what got me. But
yeah, but you adapted. You did the things you could control, and then like the cramping, you adapted and you did something that you've never done, and it seemed to help release those cramps.
Yeah,
so that's good.
Surprisingly.
What are you most proud of?
That I two things, I guess, that I learned to be patient on the bike, and second was I didn't look at my watch.
Nice.
In a weird way, it's, I'm proud that I was able to, the discipline to not look is so hard because I wanted to see if I was on pace, because that would change my mindset. I thought it would. I thought it would change my mind in a negative way. I was a little bit fearful. If I look at this, it's not where I want it to be. Although the first loop was no problem. It felt great. And according to my numbers, I was definitely in that 8:45 range probably. But I thought, if I look down, it doesn't change. There's no point looking down, and I don't want to be negatively impacted by seeing what I don't want to see. And so I'm just going to go through it. So those two things, that I was able to stay with the plan, throttle back, and not push. That's weird. It's like a double negative. I didn't push on the bike, and I felt good about it, and I didn't look at my watch on the run. That's what I'm proud of.
And what are some areas do you know right now? I know it was a quick list of questions that I sent you. What are areas of growth moving forward with the rest of the season?
Well, I'm gonna put some more hard training efforts in on the bike so I can maintain some higher watts. So some more harder intervals outside my comfort zone. And the same thing with the run. One of the workouts that I was following was one of our training plans was the advanced half Ironman plan that we have on Training Peaks. I was following it with some of the running training details, and I had toward the end, like 2 weeks out, some tempo runs. Or no, I think it was a 1 minute hard and a 3 minute easy run. Maybe that was last week or something like that. and like, oh my God, I need to really do this more often, because those RPEs of 7 and 8 versus a 4 to 6, those 7 and 8s felt good, and my overall average run pace was faster because of it. I need to do some more hard run intervals, and I'll feel more confident with the next set of races and training. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, what I would recommend, I know we've talked about you have some sprints and Olympics coming up in the near future before your November Ironman is, yeah, work on speed. You don't really have to train for an Ironman right now. You still have, I think, 5 more months, but you have some sprints and Olympics. Take the time to get faster. So then when you get back into an Ironman specific build phase of training, you're getting there at a higher fitness and at a faster pace, higher FTP going into your next Ironman preparation.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to that and going into the race, whether it was questions from non-triathletes or triathlete friends in the circle, it's like, what are you hoping to do in here? It's like, well, this is going to be a data race. I want to know where I'm at, and I got it. I needed to know where I was, and it wasn't an A race. It was weird. I'm going into it going, all right, I'm going to train this race, and I'm going to play a mental game, strategy game. And that's the whole thing. Otherwise, yeah, I could have went harder, but I would have killed myself on the run. If I went harder on the bike, it would have just been ego. It's like, oh, sure, I could have gone 20 miles per hour, no problem. But why? Then I would have had a 2 hour and 30-minute run. Wouldn't have been worth it. It would have been stupid. They don't give a medal for someone who, finishes the last third of their age group. Yeah.
They don't give medals out for the biggest egos.
It's true. That's true. Yeah, there's some really fit athletes out there, though. It felt good to be back in this environment, because 2019 was the last time I did a half. This actual same course too, but it was good to be back there and I felt comfortable, and I really took my time in transition. It was a joke. I sat down, I put my socks on, I stretched.
I was following you on the tracker, and I was wondering.
6 minutes, 6 minute transitions.
I was wondering, what does he do?
And that was on both, on the swim and the bike to run. And I really was that bike to run. I really took my time. I mean, I walked into transition, took everything off, sat down, put the socks on, stretched it out, mentally prepared for the run. I walked up until that. Put the sunscreen on me, and I hit my watch, and I went. It was like, okay, this is why we're here. I don't care about a fast transition. I want to go out feeling comfortable on this run. Same thing. The swim was, I don't even know if I want to talk about the swim. I got issues with the swim, and they're not physical. And that's I could almost cry. It's a very, very tough
Let's
time.
just say your swim was way slower than I anticipated it to be.
It really wasn't about the speed either. It was, I could tell you things that sound like excuses, like it was 60 degrees, which was really hard to get used to in the beginning. But I used a technique that I learned from a guy, and we've talked about this many, many podcasts ago. Because it was 60, actually colder toward the shore than it was out in the main part of the lake, I had to put my face in the water, and I got these little capillaries, or these little pockets underneath your nose, around your cheeks, that you have to get cold and accustomed to, acclimated. Otherwise, your heart rate's going to go crazy. You won't be able to catch your breath. And I had a hard time catching my breath during my warm-up. It was like, oh my God, I can't catch my breath. This is super cold. My body is not adapting to this cold. Plus my wetsuit's, a half size too small. And then I got out there, and I couldn't breathe. I got flashbacks to my last Olympic, where I thought I was going to drown. And it was just like, no, not again. And this is in the first 200 yards. I had this episode. Then I stopped at 300 yards, because I said the buoys, or the third buoy, I should say. Second buoy, third buoy. I stopped. It's like, oh no. I'm treading water going, no. It's too early. Not now. And then it's like, fuck, I just got to get going. I got to move. And I just got back into a horizontal position, and I started going slow, get the arms going, try to catch my breath. And just like, all right. Then I told myself, this is a feel-good thing. Not today. I'm not stopping. This is not going to happen today. I'm going to keep going. And I just like, in a way, I'm just going to close my eyes and swim. Just go. Just go.
Yeah, and I'm sure that 60-degree water was a huge reason that happened to you. I forgot Coeur d'Alene is still really cold water.
One thing I liked about the swim start is that they went, oh, this is a really cool thing, everybody. I don't know if they're doing it now or this is the first time or what. It was a great idea. So they put you in groups of, hey, anybody under 30 minutes, okay, you go out first, 30 or 35 minutes and so on. Mm-hmm. And then they took a 2-minute break between groups. And they explained this is going to help alleviate congestion on the bike. I go, oh, what a brilliant idea.
Yeah.
Plus, they went in 5 people every 5 seconds or something like that in the swim, which also was good because you're not getting crawled over. I think I had 3 people touch my feet the whole time. It was wonderful. That part was good and smart. But once I hit the halfway mark, I glanced at my watch, which I didn't. It's like, oh my God, 23 minutes? Are you serious? Mm-hmm. And I was like, it's going to be one of those days. But then I picked it up. Somehow I finally got warmed up. The body got warmed up physically where I could exhale a little bit with my chest. And I went faster on the second half. And I got into a better rhythm. So I felt better that the second half of the swim was good. But I've got some psychological issues with the swim right now because I know I can swim tons faster than 2:15.
I know you can. I know you can too. And it's just, things happen. I bet you if you got in the water again today, a week later, you'd be fine because you experienced it. It's just something that you didn't experience before race day. And, for me, the breathlessness is going to happen. And I'm a strong swimmer, but I'm still going to be breathless in the warm up and probably at the start of the race. And I probably would swim with my head out of the water for a little portion of it because that's really cold. And so no, that makes sense to me that it was just a cold water issue, not anything else. Not like you're not comfortable swimming in open water, you have a fear. It's just a cold water thing.
I hope that's what it is. It's so tough when I know everyone knows this too, but it's just one of those. I did an Olympic distance last year, same lake, and we jumped off a ferry and went straight into the shore. Same course, just went straight in. And it was, I probably talked about it. It was choppy and I swallowed a lot of water and got scared and thought I was going to drown. It's the scariest thing I've had. And that was on my mind and that didn't help going out there. The water wasn't as choppy, so that helped, but it still was like, shit, I'm going back out in the same course that I had the scary moment, 6-8 months ago. All right, get through it. And that was the first hard part of it. Add the cold, add the flashbacks of I'm at the same lake, can't see the bottom, same wetsuit. But there was a minor success there because
you got through it. You got through it. It just goes to show you the thoughts of how your mindset can overcome some things, and it sounded like your mindset helped you. And then experience and mindset. You could be having a weak moment. And then you overcome it, whether it's on the swim, bike, or run. Anything can happen during such a long event.
And there's a lot of positive self-talk. I think if anyone can listening, a lot of self-talk can get you through these things. I would tell myself, this is the easy part in the swim, even though I was having issues. This is the easy part. Relax because the bike is hard. And on the bike, at the end of the last half of the bike, all right, cool, take it easy. This is the easy part. Running. That's what you're waiting for. Prepare, be measured, settle, don't push. Save yourself for the run. The run is the race. And these little things I'd say to myself, looking down, having this tunnel vision. There was times when I was running, I think someone waved at me. I was so looking at the ground, head down, looking, 15 feet ahead of me, 10 feet ahead of me, looking straight down, listening to my pace, visualizing my training routes around my house. This is if I'm 6 miles away. What's my 6 mile course around my house? Okay, that's what I'm at. That way, I can break it down like it's not too far away, or I know where I am on the course.
Yeah, that's very helpful.
Visualization.
That's how I do break down. I break down half marathons and marathons like that.
How so?
All the time.
What do you think? What are you thinking or
Well,
visualizing?
like in a half marathon, I'll break it up into 5K portions, and kind of like you. Okay, what 5K course would I be doing right now?
Okay.
Stuff like that. Or maybe if I decide to break it up differently, I'll start with a 10K. Okay, I'm doing a 10K course. Where am I right now? Am I, on the track running my 10K, or, and I do that when I aqua jog. I visualize a course I'd be running outside if I wasn't inside aqua jogging, and I do it on the treadmill. It kind of helps me get through the treadmill because, most of us do prefer to be outside rather than indoors. And so that visualization helps. And for me in running, I think Miranda Caffrey has the most awesome running form. So I visualize myself running like her. So, I've seen her run so many times in person and on YouTube and just various social media channels that I'm like, gosh, I want to run like her. And so I kind of get in that feeling and that mindset that I'm running like her. And that's very helpful as well. And, the visualization comes, weeks before my events too. The most important events, I'm visualizing certain aspects of the event, a week or two out. And that I think super helpful for me.
And I'm not patting myself on the back as much as I've seen people do this, but I never thought about doing it myself. I made a little piece of paper with these markers on it for the bike. Luckily, I knew the bike course well enough, and there was a video online that I found that had a great topography map, speed, and elevation on the video. And I made notes, and then I put the sticky thing on my bike so I can attack this course smart.
Yeah.
And I would do that again if I knew, Arizona's not going to be much of a climb. I don't know how much I'd do with that one, but at least I know there are certain sections that are like this, or there's a gradual climb here. I'm going to continue doing, I have done this, always recon online of the website. What's this course look like? Where the turns are, where the mile markers are visually. But when it's like a hilly course, and if you can recon that physically and make some notes and leave those notes in your bike, boy, it was so easy to like, all right, I'm looking forward to this next 3-mile descent. Or like, all right, prepare for the next 1.5 mile climb. I'm going to be going high cadence, lower the power, and then I'm ready. Taking away the unknown makes you so much more confident of knowing what to expect.
So just a couple of weeks ago, I ride the Full Gas app. So I do cycling rides inside, and they had the Ironman Kona course broken up into 4 different rides. And so I tackled those 4 rides in like a 2-week span. And so as I'm, I've been to Kona, I know it just reminded me of certain sections of the course that I think are really going to be helpful for me. So when I'm down there in October, I'm going to be like, okay, I rode this section, even though it was indoors. I'm familiar with the scenery. I'm familiar with how long and what grade those climbs are, because even though I've ridden them in the past, I've never paid attention to the exact grade and the exact length of how long it's going to take me. So for me, I feel like I'm ahead of the ball game in that aspect because I have access to ride indoors and get familiar with the grade and the length of each climb.
Any more questions that you talk to people about post-race? Because I have we talked about what you learned. We talked about what worked well, what you're most proud of, what didn't go well. We talked about how did you respond to things that weren't in your control, your cramping, what are your areas of growth, what were your thoughts and feelings, what was not effective about your mental game, how did your pre-race planning help or hinder you, what was your fueling and hydration strategy, and then, circumstances of the day. So all in all, we hit all those answers to those questions. And I think it's just really good to do after any race, whether it's a priority A race or a less priority B or C race. I think it's important that you can take lessons learned moving forward with your training. And you're just more aware of what kind of changes you need to make from a training or nutrition or mental standpoint going into the next event. Someone might ask you about recovery and when you get back on the horse after a half Ironman. Coach, what would you say to them?
Number one, it depends on the person's experience and how many halves they've done and when their next event is. And again, what their goals are and what their why is. I think it's important, first and foremost, is to allow yourself that immediate post-race few days off or few days very low intensity active recovery. For me, that would be a very easy swim or a walk. And then kind of as you're assessing and making sure the, body aches and pains, if you have them, are gone, then you kind of ease back into training maybe on day 4, 5, or 6, where you're going, for more of that an hour aerobic ride, 45-minute aerobic run, allowing yourself to stop early if you're just not feeling right. Meaning if you're feeling like you're going into these training sessions 4, 5, 6 days after your race, that they're harder than they should be, you should stop. You're not recovered. If you're feeling kind of like this is about the pace and the RPE that I would normally do, then continue going. And you might by the weekend after your weekend half Ironman, you might be ready to do maybe a 2-hour ride. I wouldn't go much more than a 2-hour ride. I wouldn't go much longer than an hour run a week later. Again, it's all assessing how you're feeling. There's so much to recovery than just not training. You want to make sure the fueling and the sleep is there, and maybe you want to get an extra massage or two to promote recovery. Mm-hmm. If you don't have an event for a long time, then you may go into a little postseason where you may have maybe 2 weeks, 3 or 4 weeks kind of as a postseason training before you start ramping up for your next event. It really just depends. I know you have some, sprints and Olympics within the next month, and then you're full in November. So it just really just depends on the next events after you're half or full.
Yeah, the sprint that I have is not this weekend, but next weekend. And I rode real easy on Tuesday, swam yesterday because I feel so lazy if I don't do something. Like today, I'm not going to work out, and it feels weird, but I know I need to because my quads and hamstrings are still very sore, and my left shoulder is a little sore from I don't know what exactly. But my legs are still shot. It's like, but I feel like I want to do something. It's so nice out. But I think the sprint is one of those where, all right, I'll just do it when it's time. And then the Olympic is, I think, 5 weeks after that. So that will be kind of a train through with maybe 3 days rest prior to, and then I'll do my best to crush it. And then I will really recover and then plan the Ironman.
Yeah. I mean, I think the key word is easy. Again, I'm a big person, keep a log of how you're feeling, keep a log of, your sleep quality, your volume of sleep, how many hours a night are you sleeping, and just allow yourself to take more recovery than you think you need, especially the first week or two after, your first or second or third half Ironman distance race. Again, someone like me who's been doing this for 30 years and I've done 20 Ironmans, my recovery is going to be different than someone who's never done an event. Yeah. So it's just a matter of listening to your body, and you don't have to do what your other friends are doing because they train differently and their preparation's different than yours. So your recovery should be different than theirs.
I got to say this, Ironman really does put on a great event. I know from the inside that they do. On the outside as an athlete, I know that. And I was just reminded of how well organized it was. I overheard someone, I think on the beach or in transition, I can't remember which, because, I'm just whatever. I heard someone say, can you imagine how much money they made at this race in registration alone? And they were saying like $500 per person. There's 2,500 people out here. And I'm going, and then I remember hearing that, but it's like, you guys don't know. And then at the end of the day, after I'm going to get the athlete food tent and stuff, I'm just getting some food. I'm thinking, the value that you get for what they do and all the time and setup. I just reminded, they do a really good job, really good job. And it's a good value for what you put in. You've got all the aid stations. The volunteers are the heart and soul of it, but all the staff and crew that set up, prepare, tear down. The swim was being torn down after the bike. I mean, I don't think the buoys are definitely gone. And it's just like these guys do a really good job. So anyone who complains about these high costs of entry fees, you are paying a lot. You're paying a small percentage of what really is being put into it. If you consider the travel that each individual has to do to get there, their lodging, their talents, their organization, it's a well-oiled machine. Just kudos again to the people who do this.
Yeah, I mean, I was a race director for 5 or 6 years for a local sprint back in Windsor, Colorado. And I mean, we barely made a penny. We actually paid volunteers, charities to help volunteer. We had more than enough volunteers because we donated to their charity of what they wanted, and just paying for like traffic control, porta johns.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't really understand what goes on behind the scenes until you're an event director and you realize why the costs are the way they are. Like you said, there's a lot of staff on the Ironman, at an Ironman race, and just paying all those people to be there.
Yeah.
And, of course they're still making a lot of money. It's a business. And at the same time, they're putting on a certain standard for their event, and that's what you're paying for.
Yeah, big thanks to all the volunteers and staff members that make these events work. Appreciate it very much. Made my day a lot better, and it was cool. So thank you so much, and thanks for the questions, Wendy. I know these are good questions for myself, but for everyone else to think about. Is there a way we can share this list of questions with people? Should we just put it on our T2 Endurance Facebook group?
I've shared it in the T2 Endurance Facebook group before. I also have a link on my website,
Okay.
t2coaching.com. And
where is it on the website? Is it?
I'd have to look. It's in a blog of mine. I think it's even titled, it might be titled post race review questions.
Okay.
But we can link it to the show notes. But I think they're pretty important. There's a lot more you can add to it, but I think those summarize, make athletes think of stuff that maybe they're not aware of during, but when they reflect on it, they start analyzing things that they've never thought that they should analyze, and it helps them moving forward.
Okay, I found it. Here it is. It's under on t2coaching.com under training tips. You scroll down to the bottom where it says race report. And it says in one of the blog posts titled Components of a Race Report. And those are all your questions.
Yeah.
That's where you find it. T2coaching.com, triathlon tips, down to race report, components of a race report. Good stuff. All right. Well, for Coach Wendy Mader, I'm Dave Erickson. Thanks so much for listening to this. Hope you got something out of it on my experience, and you can apply it to yours moving forward. Until next week, have a great week of training, racing, or like me, recovery. See you next time. Adios.
Adios.